Good morning. I hope you had a wonderful night as I had. And of course, thank you so much for keeping it GBS. This is GBS Morning Extra. My name is Tom Mwem as usual. And of course, remember hashtags, hashtag GBS Morning Extra to one Tom Mwem, of course, on YouTube. On YouTube, we are also streaming live and you can follow the conversation. 21144 is our SBS lights. And today I'm not alone. I'm joined by Timothy Mondi. Good morning.
Good morning, Tom.
How are you?
Very fine.
You're good.
I am good, generally.
That's nice. And of course, today we have a lot to discuss about. And of course, you have seen what are making headlines today. And of course, it would be great to update our viewers what's happening and what they need to know at this hour.
Sure.
Okay. And let's see what the daily has this morning. Let's start the Daily Nation. Former news anchor in Kenya, let's say Esther Runga, faces 25 years in prison. A dead child, her husband facing homicide charges and questions about her mental state. Can this once high-flying lawyer come journalist wiggle out her biggest challenge yet? This after the journalist yesterday confessed that he lied about the death of her child, a 3-year-old child then. And of course, she also facing a 25-year-old sentence in court, and of course that is if the courts will rule, and the court is expected to be heard this week. So what does you make about this case? And of course, she was once an icon in Kenya, then she went abroad, and now this is all what is happening.
I think as the Nation rightly put it, she was a symbol of ambition. She was a lawyer, a calm journalist. She took the headlines or the limelight when she, found herself into this unfortunate situation. Clearly, for some time, she denied it, but I think after reflection, I would say, and also the family being concerned and following up on her mental state, finally we can hear of such a confession that indeed her then husband punched the baby in the stomach and threw him on the wall in the name of, casting out demons. As you know, the guy had a religious outfit.
Yeah,
that's Quincy himself.
Yeah,
Quincy
Timberlake. A lot of controversy.
Yeah, he also formed a party called the Finger of God. He wanted to vie as the president of this nation, which of course did bring him to the limelight at that moment. But then events that followed later, it was controversy after controversy. They left the country. And still, this unfortunate incident, the death of baby Sinkila, actually happened when they were abroad. And I think these are one of those unfortunate things that happen in our life, but also speaks volumes about the mental health. People don't really regard mental health as something, but then until such a thing like this happened, Esther Runga is someone who is learned. Quincy is they used to call him a jazz maestro. He's very good at jazz, at playing his saxophone and everything. And it's really quite unfortunate. But then it's an awakening to our country, I think, that it doesn't matter at what level of society you are or who you are in society, the mental health or mental state of people, actually the mindset that people live with, is really very important. And I think that sets the basis for probably part of what we are going to focus on today as we talk about the IYF youth camp, and also the CLF exhibition and conference for church leaders that is going to take place this month from the 28th to the 1st of August. Yeah.
Okay. And of course, we have the governors. Governors opposed the revenue distribution bill. The county governors yesterday made good their threat to move to Supreme Court to seek an interpretation as well as constitutionality of the division of revenue bill, which addresses the contentious issues on allocating funds to the devolved units. And since the budget was read, that was last month, we have had a lot of issues with the counties because of the funding.
Sure.
We have issues with the Senate and of course the National Assembly. And now we are seeing governors moving to court. What does all this mean, especially for devolution?
Tom, yesterday I watched your show and you had here a guest who is the Secretary General of the
Third Way Alliance.
The Third Way Alliance. Yeah. And I think he was very candid in his remarks. And we also saw the Punguza Mzigo Bill of 2019 that the party has actually proposed. When we look at such a bill and how articulate it is, and it only shows you why it is really necessary to do the changes that now the Third Way Alliance is calling. I'm not drumming up support for them, but what I'm saying is that indeed it is high time that also Kenyans look at the issue of governance and also the bulkiness of the governments that we have in place. The county governments have such a huge structure which costs Kenyans and also I would say the mwananchi, the taxpayer, a lot of money. Okay. And I think some of the issues that were also addressed here when I listened carefully is that there is no clear distinction over who is above the other when we come to the two houses. We have a bicameral house, that's what we call it, and that's the term that was largely used when the new constitution was being, when they're drumming up support for the new constitution as we were heading through to the promulgation. And until we solve this issue, because we are finding ourselves in this stalemate, because the two houses cannot agree in terms of allocation of funds. And that's why, we had to see, governors out in the streets. It's quite unfortunate that governors have to protest for the national government to give them money.
Yeah,
it sounds like a joke, but I mean, it's the reality that we're facing in Kenya today.
They always say constitution is very clear. I don't know how clear it is.
I mean, if it were very, very clear as they're saying, then we wouldn't have governors abandoning their offices and, taking a protest to the street and going to petition the High Court. Okay,
and now to education matters, and the Cabinet Secretary for Education, that is Professor George Magoha, has hinted it again and said that people should stop politicking about the new syllabus, and critics of the competency-based curriculum have been told to keep off politics. And of course, this new curriculum has been facing a lot of challenges, especially from the teachers themselves, the teachers' unions, and majority of the publics who don't understand really what the curriculum is all about. And we had a discussion here last week, and it was clear that a lot has not been done, although the government is forcing the schools to roll out the program.
The government is pushing for the adoption of the new constitution, and I remember also that time the two teachers who are here actually expressed their remarks, and this is something that has been brought up time and time again. Since we started on this transition to the new curriculum, you realize that there has always been one consistent complaint which has never changed, which I think that Kenyans have to address. Mr. Magoha, Dr. Magoha, with all due respect, has to address this. The issue of teachers complaining that they are not being included, they are not being consulted, they are not being brought into the discussion table over the change of the new curriculum. So I think it is something that it's high time that Mr. Magoha just lend the teachers an ear and listen to them. I mean, they cannot just cry here for no reason. I believe that there must be a very good reason. And if teachers themselves do not understand, and as we had the teachers who were here last time, none of them, being as senior as they are, none of them has actually attended one of those training sessions. Neither do they even have an idea or a clue what is being taught. And from the account of one of them who was here, actually they said those who have attended the actual trainings come out there,
They don't even know what
I mean, they're like, okay, what is the training? So what really did we come to do here? So the education, the curriculum is something that really needs to be discussed on.
Okay, and now to courts. We have a court rules out DNA in property disputes. Children whose paternity is disputed will no longer need to be subjected to DNA tests so as to be included as beneficiaries of their father's estates. That's the High Court. That's what the High Court has ruled. And instead of paternity dispute, instead, if the paternity disputes persist, such children can now seek to inherit the real estate as dependents as provided for under the Section 29 of laws of the Succession Act. And of course, we have the CBK testifies in Kidero's case, the corruption case former Nairobi governor is facing. The Central Bank of Kenya yesterday explained to court how the Nairobi County government paid out millions of shillings to companies during the Dr. Evans Kidero regime. The anti-corruption chief magistrate Douglas Ogoti has also allowed a request by the Director of Public Prosecution to permit the cooperative bank manager to present evidence on how the payments were released to service providers. And now I think those are the main stories on the Standard. And of course on the back page.
On the Nation?
Yeah. On the Nation. The Daily Nation, that is. Yeah. And in the back page, the 12 witnesses to testify in Judge Ojwang probe. 12 people down from 22 original lineup will testify before the tribunal investigating the conduct of the Supreme Court Judge Jackson Ojwang that will be held in camera. Of course, let's look at the Standard. The Standard is also the Splash is all about education matters. Schools crisis as new intake rules cause congestion. Though the government's push for 100% transition pupils from primary to secondary schools was a good move, but the large numbers have overwhelmed the institutions. Again, the debate on education sector.
Yes.
The 100% transition, if we have issues of facilities, some schools are not capable of handling such numbers. But now it's the government policy. What do we do?
I think we move with it. I think we move with it because as we continue, then I think also the government, Mr. Magoa, again, with all due respect, should try and consider and maybe give a leeway and say, okay, let's not do 100% transition. Let us try and do it in phases. Because as we stand right now, even the piloting of the new curriculum started in phases. That's why we have I wouldn't call it a crisis, but still some people are calling it a crisis. The grade 3, what do they call it? Grade 3?
Yeah.
The grade 3 right now, I have a kid in grade 3, and the other time I received an SMS from the school telling me that they will not be assessed. Okay. Yesterday, the girl comes home and tells me, Daddy, we have to take a copy of our birth certificate. So you see, these are things that if the government knew that they were going to go through all these processes, it would be very clear, and this would have been communicated to the public and to the parents at home, that this is how we are going to handle grade 3, and we are going to move from this stage to this stage. As pertaining to matters of examination, this is how we are going to do it. As pertaining to matters of proceeding to the next class, this is how we are going to do it. And that actually would have set precedence and would have also given us a clear picture of what would have happened between those kids who are coming from from primary school to high school. And okay. I think that would have really.
And the question is, everybody's talking about the new curriculum. Everybody's talking about the 100% transition, but no one's talking about the resources. How many schools have the capacity to do that, to take in 100% transition from school?
And that's why I'm saying, Tom, if the government would have laid this out clearly, if they had a clear plan, that really shows us right now that they don't have a clear plan. It's more of they're shooting in the dark just to see if, a duck will come out of there, or, they'll get a kill. But the whole idea is that if the government had a clear plan, then it would have outlined this. Such information would have been communicated to the publics, to the parents, and they would have actually known that this is how we are going to go step by step. So indeed, resources, that's a big issue, especially for high schools that are going to have to consume all these students that will be coming from primary school.
Okay, and now to politics. Raila Odinga and his arch rival, as Dr. William Ruto, the President of the Republic of Kenya. Yesterday they met in one conference. They all met to launch a national export strategy aimed at bridging Kenya's trade deficit. In a rare public display of unity, the two political rivals sat side by side while launching the policy document dubbed the Integrated National Export Development and Promotion Strategy. The event was marked in Nairobi, where the Kenya Trade Week also started yesterday. These two gentlemen from the yesterday's display, they don't seem to be as enemies as we think.
There's a saying that says, smile for the cameras. So, you can smile for the cameras, but let's just call it as it is, Tom.
Okay.
These two right now, I don't believe they are the best of friends.
Okay.
And even if we may say, of course, individually there is no enmity between the two,
okay, because
they know each other better than we know them. But then politically, I think it's just not the time. Politically, we cannot lie. Those
okay,
two right now, even sharing a platform in that manner, I think as leaders also they need to do. I remember one time when there was this, when the two leaders, and this is an example from next door, South Sudanese leaders, when they visited the Vatican, when they visited the Pope, remember the dramatic incident where the Pope, came out of his chair and kissed the feet of all the warring factors in South Sudan, yeah, when they visited him at the Vatican, when they had a prayer meeting and they had some discussions. There's something that the Pope said in one of the bites. He said, you may not agree, you may differ in private. Differ in private. It's the truth. But before the people, show unity. Before the people, smile. For the interest of the nation, so that the nation is united together. And I think if these people, if our leaders could have taken the same advice, sometimes the fact they throw at each other in public really divides the country, because politics is something that is emotional. Okay. If I am a strong or I'm a fanatic supporter of Tom Mwema, anyone who hurls insults at Tom Mwema is indeed my true enemy. And if Tom Mwema tells me those people are against us, that's why we've seen tribal clashes in this country. That's why we've seen post-election violence in this country. And I think it's high time that the leaders show us that they differ politically, but they are not enemies. And I think for the cameras and for the interests of the nation, it's a good gesture.
Okay. And of course, we have the betting crisis in the country.
Sure.
And of course, some of the major companies that people didn't expect that they could be shut down.
Sure.
They are having it rough. Mm-hmm. And of course, you have SportPesa here. They're saying here are the facts that people don't know. They say there are no underage players on SportPesa platform. Mm-hmm. SportPesa does not own a betting shop in the country. Mm-hmm. Playing on SportPesa platform is only through a mobile money, which restricts persons under the age of 18. Mm-hmm. And of course, they have given the accurate user demographic by age. Mm-hmm. They're saying 18 years to 24 years old is only 4.90% of their platform visitors. Mm-hmm. And of course, 35 years old to 44 years old only contribute to 23.46%. And 25 years old to 34 years old contribute 59.74%. And there's also a question of not being compliant with the taxes. But SportPesa has received awards for being the best taxpayer in the country. So is there more than it meets the eye, or is it just that the government has now waken up and decided maybe we want to save people from this menace?
I would like to direct a finger of blame to the government to start with. The government is partly, and when I say partly, I mean a larger part of the blame goes to the government. You see, there are betting companies that have gone through all the scrutiny that needs to be there, to be done by the government and everything. The record is clean. But then where I think we missed it is when the government saw how lucrative the betting business was, and it opened the floodgates to even some unscrupulous betting companies, and it did not take, keen interest. It did not keep a close eye to find out who is running these betting companies and how are they doing it. And that's why right now we find ourselves in a crisis. I think last time when we were looking, we have more than, I don't know how many betting companies in Kenya. So many.
They're over 30.
They're over 30, close to 40. So, for the government to give so many licenses in such a short period of time, I mean, again, it's laxity in the part of the government. And you know, betting, it's a reality that betting may turn into a habit, and when it becomes a habit, we've seen people who, you know, engage into gambling, and they've even sold their houses and left their families homeless because of gambling and, I would say, betting.
But it all comes to being responsible, because even some brands, you are told when using them, use them responsibly. So I think it's a matter of personal responsibility.
Yeah, it's a gray area. I wouldn't want to touch on that because of whatever interest. But Tom, one thing we have to agree is that even, you know, alcohol, you know, people become alcoholics.
Okay.
People are addicted. People suffer from some kind of diseases because of smoking a cigarette, and then you find there's warnings when they're doing the advertisement. You know, excessive consumption of alcohol is harmful to your health, but I mean,
still people use
they sell it, and the government has licensed them to sell it. So,
okay, so there's a lot.
But I think one of the solutions that the government can put into curbing these menace of growing betting companies and, you know, having these claims of tax evasion and everything is that, like someone mentioned, when the budget was read, there was a lot of complaint that things that have to do with leisure have to be seriously and heavily taxed because it is leisure. Then it would mean that for me to actually partake in such activities, I must have that extra, you know, that 10 shillings or 100 shillings to spare for me to actually get into betting or go drinking.
And we have seen that happening with the alcohol brands.
Yes, yes. I think they should remove the levies that they put on border riders and fuel, bring it back to such things like, you know, betting, so that those who play are those who are able to actually do it. And then it also locks out many companies or firms that are not really into doing any good to the publics and are just there to reap money and not pay taxes and stuff like that.
And also we are seeing here the betting firms sues Gaming Control Board over refusal to renew the permit. Of course, the crisis continues.
Yeah, the crisis continues.
A betting firm has gone to court to challenge the government refusal to renew the license. None of us international that runs Bet Power is protesting the betting control and licensing board failure to renew bookmakers and public gaming permits for 2019-2018. Again,
so I don't know if this has affected. I don't know, but I would really want to know if this has also affected because it's the same body that governs, you know, gaming and all those kind of things.
And of course,
there's horse racing. You know,
yeah.
There's a lot of betting that goes. You know, sports betting is something that has been around for a very long time. Okay. Remember the days when, you know, the Ngong racecourse was very famous, and people would line up probably every weekend to, you know, look, you know, find out what is going on at Ngong racecourse. People placed bets, and that's betting. Sports
and of
betting
course, there's also a question of there are some gambling companies, leave alone the one that people place their bets according to the games or matches that are going on. There's others that people are told to send money and, of course, wait for the car, I don't know the numbers, then wait for the system to generate the winner. How comes no one is talking about them?
I think they are in there, if I'm not wrong, because if I want to assume and I believe that all these such outfits are under the sports betting, what do they call it? The sports and betting...
the control board, the betting and licensing control board.
The betting and licensing control board. I believe all these outfits are under that, and I believe that they would not just lock out, you know, players like SportPesa and the rest and refuse to renew the licenses and still renew the licenses to the same. I think what they're trying to do, or what I am presuming that they want to do, is first to clear house, and then everyone who comes back in is clearly vetted and is known, you know, who they are and what they are doing.
Okay.
That's my assumption.
Okay, and that's what we have all for the daily papers today. And of course, you can grab your copy to read more about the stories that we have just highlighted. But now we are taking a quick breather. When we come back, we look at the news updates.
Kulipa is now easy with EasyPay. When you shop at your local supermarket, fuel your car, dine out, book a flight, make other payments or pay your bills, you want simplicity, security and convenience. It's accepted everywhere you see the EasyPay sign. And it works with other mobile networks too. What's more, you can withdraw your cash at the supermarket till where you see the cashback logo. Get your Equitel line or download the Easy Banking app today because Kulipa is now easy with EasyPay.
There is no work that has been left for us to do at the cross. Christ did it all. I don't see us getting lost again tomorrow because Jesus already done the job. So this is the message that I support, this is the message that I believe in, this is the message that I preach, and I'll continue to preach it.
Win up to 100% cashback when you pay with your Equity MasterCard. Simply use your Equity MasterCard to pay for shopping, food and drinks, fuel, online transactions, or any other goods and services at any outlet displaying the